This is a video I'm also going to say that I'm making for myself, even though I state that at the beginning, it might change. Okay, so this is what I wanted to record so I don't forget. Before I went to Sedona, I was told that I went to Phoenix, I was told that I'd go to Sedona, and I didn't know how I was going to get there, but that I would be going. And that happened, but I was told that ahead of time. So that's God working through me. How else God worked through me? When I got there, and I arrived at the hotel, I was so pleased I went a day ahead because there was a meditation that was held in the room where the conference was going to be to lift the energy up and bring in the positive energy for the conference, which was so smart to do. And I was able to be part of that. The next day, as I went downstairs and had breakfast, I passed these two women that were just these beautiful souls, just shining light out from them. And I could just feel it from them, that her eyes were just lit up. And I looked at them and I thought, I got to talk to those guys. And so I said to them, I have to talk to you. There's a story I want to tell you. So when I finished my breakfast, may I tell it to you? And they said, oh, yes, we'd love that. We'd love that. So as I finished my breakfast, I passed them again and said, look, I'm going up to my room to get my special book for you to sign. And I said, but we need to sit outside and we need to find a tree. I think we should be in nature when I tell you this story. And so the one woman, who was just an amazing, beautiful soul, she had a little Sufi cap on too, and her Merkaba right here, and I love her instantly. And she said she was going to go find such a place. So I go, great. So I go up to my room and I get my book, and I come down, and she says, oh, I found some other people and they want to hear the story too. And I said, wow, okay. So this was all happening. This was happening, and I was watching it happen, and I was letting it be okay. It ended up that there was 6 of us in a circle, and I placed the book in the middle of the circle and also a copy of my new book. And we sat around and I began to tell the story of how I got the book, and that people that were present at the time of Christ were resurfacing, and people who carry the light, and this is who signed the book. So I told them that whole story. We ended up doing an opening ceremony. It was like the goddesses, for the six goddesses from 6 different galaxies were gathered and sat in a circle, making the sign of victory and joining ourselves together as one. And we brought in the energy, singing different songs and using our Hebrew language to bring in the light. And I said, as we were doing this, I said, we're laying the foundation and we're bringing the energy into this conference. We were there exchanging stories, and it was 3.5 hours. So after I left that, I believe I went up to my room. Maybe I went down then and I had a swim. Then I had my dinner, and then went off to the conference that night. And the conference began on the Friday, where I was lucky enough to sit beside this beautiful woman. And we became instant good friends. And I also sat beside this other couple from Germany, lovely people. And it was just an absolutely amazing event to attend. And the energy in it was fantastic. And I want to remember that there was 2 individuals that sat at the end of the row that I felt their energy was very hard on me, and that grew as the conference went on. But luckily people would come in and sit between me and them, and I was able to focus and concentrate and maintain my energy frequency. So I knew that when I was guided to go to this conference, that I was there for a reason, and then to meet the souls that were to sign the book, but also to be the reflection of God for the speakers. So I usually like to sit close to the front. I sit in the front row, actually. There's a spot I usually sit in, but I was moved to another one, which was fine. But um, and this is good for anybody who goes to a conference of any kind, is to always focus and give your attention on the speaker. At all times, you are to focus and send love and light to the person speaking, because that will send them power and energy, and they will be able to be clearer as a spokesperson. So that's a good rule of thumb. And this is something that I always do my best to do, is send them light and love and reflect God to them when they're speaking. So what else did I want to remember? I guess the next day, seeing those beautiful women again. We kept running into each other, and through them I met more people. And yeah, I think it was Saturday morning. Yeah, I don't want to forget this. One of the people that had been at these conferences for like 30 years plus, this beautiful man comes up to me, and he walked into the room for breakfast and looked right at me and walked right over to me and sat down, and he goes, and I go, oh, hi, how are you? And I knew his name, and I said, hi, how are you doing? And he says, fine. He says, you know what? I said, I had a dream last night. And I said, really? And I said, tell me your dream. And he said, I dreamt that there was this bird, this bird, and all the rest of the birds were protecting this one bird. And they were all very intent on keeping this bird safe. And I kept seeing all these birds congregating around this one bird in the middle, keeping this bird safe. And there was a white bird protecting the little black bird in the middle. And when he told me the dream, I knew it was me. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't know what meaning that dream has. And I said, it has meaning to me. And he says, are you that black bird? And I said, yes. He says, oh, okay. But what was amazing is that he received a dream, and he was meant to come and tell me the dream so I would see and know more about who I was to the group. So that dream was important that I received it. I started to make acquaintances with all sorts of people at the conference. I met amazing presenters, met amazing individuals that I was drawn to, I was guided to, and they were drawn and guided to me. What was really amazing was that the people that I was not meant to meet, that I thought I would end up meeting, I never met them. So when I walk in the room, I go, wow, there's all these spiritual people here. I guess I'm going to sign a lot of them to my book, all of them to my book. Are they all meant to sign? And then I heard, no. Then I heard, no, you're not. I go, okay. And then I began to realize that each individual obviously has a different frequency level, but the people that had the lowest vibrational frequency never came near me. Never came near me at all. And I know that because I could feel them, and I could feel their lower vibration, and God kept me safe from them. I was guided to befriend many of the singers that presented at the conference. Just beautiful, beautiful beings, and just able to sing and bring in the healing energy into the room. Amazing, the people that I met that were the singers and the performance at the conference. It was lovely. There was a man that was selling these amazing vibrational frequency medallions, and everybody was pretty much wearing those. And he says, well, they won't be seen on the planet till 2037. Everybody by 2037, everyone will have one of these necklaces. And why that's important is because the sacred geometry that exists and it's put into the jewelry, that sacred geometry carries a high frequency and a high vibration, and people will wear them because of that vibration and because of the sacred geometry and how it will help lift our consciousness. So I met him, and of course, I got one for everybody in my family because they're so awesome. What else do I want to remember? That was significant. That moment, um, when the speaker, the main speaker, I went up to get my first book signed on the Sacred Feminine, and he says, which one of your children is most like you? And that question just stunned me, and I said, well, my one son, and he said, oh, and he made the book out to me and my son, and I thought that was amazing. I wanted to remember that. On the Sunday, we had an Easter service and we had communion. And what was amazing was that even though I was sitting in the front row, everybody filed through. Everyone took their turn to go up to the front and receive a blessing and a recognition and a blessing and a anointing from the speaker. And I was the last one. It just worked out that way. I didn't plan it. I didn't hold back. I was the last one to receive it. And when I come up to him and I said to him when he was anointing me, and I said, last but not least, So I want to remember that. I want to remember trying to get some signatures from people. And when they weren't meant to sign, how that was okay. I got pretty tired. It's a lot of work trying to find everybody and be present for those that are coming forward to sign the book, because it's a holy moment for them. It's their purpose being actualized. It's like they're logging in, and to find them when they come forward and to try and make sure and discern who's to sign and who's not. It's a procedure in itself. What else was amazing? I would say what I don't want to forget is how the day we went to the museum, and I ended up standing out front not knowing how I was going to get there. And my good friend said, just, bring your energy field. Just imagine that it's coming up from you and you're radiating out, all this light and your strength, and just being yourself and putting your energy out, and it'll happen. Well, I no sooner stood there doing that, and a lady walks up and says, oh, do you want to ride to a museum? And I go, sure, okay. And here I ended up going to the museum with all Spanish women. They were all speaking Spanish, and I was the only one that didn't speak Spanish. And so I'm in a car with 4 other women, amazing, beautiful souls, and one lady was a translator. And so I had seen her there and been introduced to her, but to sit beside her, she was one of the most beautiful, gracious women that I'd ever encountered. And I told her the story of my book and how God had brought me this book for the souls, to find the souls that walked the earth at the time of Christ. And she thought it was fascinating. So when we got to the museum, we went in an entranceway that I knew wasn't the one we were to enter for the conference, but I let her guide us anyway, because she had been there numerous times. We ended up going in this beautiful garden area, and it was quiet. There was no one there. It was a sanctuary. And then she said to me, Sandra, can I tell these women about your story? And I said, yes. So she's speaking in Spanish, trying to explain this book to them. And this one woman looks at me and starts telling me her story. And the one lady was translating, and the one lady was sharing me her story. And it was the most sacred, beautiful moment, because she showed me who she was at the time of Christ, and I saw her running down the streets, keeping the crowds off Jesus, trying to get to him, to help him, to assist him in lifting the cross, and was being kept back at every attempt, and how she followed him through the entire time that he walked the streets carrying the cross, right up to when she was there kneeling as he was hanging on the cross. And I was able to tell her what Christ had said to her, and that this lifetime she's not to carry his cross, it was his to carry, and that her love for Christ has been recognized, and that he saw her and knows her and loves her for what she had done for him. Well, everybody starts crying, and because I'm back there, I saw it. Like, I'm holding her hand and I'm seeing it actually happen. So everyone's crying, and I'm sitting down now because I'm tired, because it was a lot of energy. And then everybody's got their arms around me, and we're hugging and we're crying. It was the single most beautiful moment. I can remember feeling such love and just such acceptance. It was a miracle. It was, and nobody came. We had that whole place to ourselves, even though it was a public place. God kept everyone away. And then I read who this other lady was, and we ended up going in for the conference. And then when the morning part was over, I went into the hall and I met this young couple, a brother, TJ, and his wife, Naomi, and it was sister Naomi, and he was a designer of jewelry. He was native, and he was a designer of jewelry. And I saw this necklace on Naomi. I said, "Oh my God, that's a beautiful necklace. Where'd you get it?" And she said, "My brother made it." And I'm going, "You made this?" And I held it, I touched it, and the energy was phenomenal. And I said, "Oh my God!" And of course, I'm going, "I would love this necklace." And I said, "Could I purchase this if you're designers?" And because he said, "Yeah, I put it on my sister so she could display it and maybe somebody would buy it." And I go, "Okay, well, the price," he told me, was quite out of my range at the time. And I said, "Well, I'd love it." And then he said, "Well, he kind of, his sister kind of went, and then he says, "I think that's meant for her, but I already am receiving pictures of what I'm going to create for you." And then I started doing a reading for him, and I saw his ancestors come in. And then I said to him, "Oh my God, your jewelry heals. Your jewelry heals." And it was just an absolutely beautiful reading. And what was amazing was that one of the guides in the museum, who was standing there, was holding space for this energy to come through and this reading to happen. And then I said, "Could you see that each of us are representing all of the 4 directions of the medicine wheel?" And everyone went, "Yes, we knew that." And the power and the presence of God in the midst of the 4 of us was beautiful. And the native directions were all being representative in the 4 of us standing there. It was an incredible miracle. So I left them encouraging him to continue with his jewelry designing. And I said, "Your jewelry heals. Anyone who wears your jewelry, it heals." So hopefully I'll keep you posted on future transactions with TJ. So moving on from that, just to be able to be in the museum at the second half of the conference was wonderful. And having the speaker up front and mirroring that light back to him, and keeping him strong in his presentation. I knew God had sent me there to do that, and it was lovely. And he played the love song between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. It was his favorite, and mine too, after he played it. So we shared that mutual love for that song after the end of the conference. So after that, I get back in the van with all the Spanish ladies, and when we get back to the hotel, they all come up to my room and sign the book. So that was amazing. It was a miracle. Just one after the other were transpiring. So that would have been Monday night, and then we had the closing ceremonies. And at the end of the conference, there was question and answer, and I had heard this speaker in one of his past videos had said that before the second coming of Christ, the goddess must appear and reveal herself. So I jump up and ask the question about, "Hey, I saw you said that. Can you tell us about the goddess and what we should look for?" And then they had an answer, and Anyway, I knew to pose the question. Um, what happened after that? It was funny because those people that are meant to sign it come, and those who are not meant to sign at this time don't come. Um, and that's just the way it is. And it's fun for me to watch it because when I think someone should sign and they can't sometimes, they find an excuse not to. And I let that be okay too, because perhaps they're not ready yet, or maybe there's a reason for it. So maybe down the road they will come again. I will meet them again and they will have a chance to sign this sacred book. So my friend that I sat beside ended up uh, being the one that was to drive me up to Sedona. And that morning, when I was leaving on the Tuesday morning, we were leaving the hotel, I ended up having the entire staff come out and sign that miracle book because they were all angelic beings looking after us, loving us, preparing this beautiful food the whole time. And they were too honored. And then I met these three individuals that were from the Palladians. They're aligned with the Pleiades stars, and they came and signed. And when we went out front and I was to get a ride by two members of the group that were that my friend asked to drive me to her house, they were loading up the car and everything, and then the people came out again, and these three individuals from the Pleiades came around the back to the front to bring their energy. And this one girl was listening to us talk, and just before she got on the bus, she said, I want to show you something. She said, I took a picture of that bush over there. And she held up her phone and she said, look what's in the bush. And it was a lion. It was the holographic appearance of a lion, which is the Christ. And then she jumped on her bus before I got her name or anything, or got her to sign the book, and off she went. So I got in the car, I said goodbye to one of these people, this gentleman, and gave him the copy of my book that's yet to be released. So I was told to let him have that. So off we go. We drive 20 minutes. I get to my friend's home, and we end up sitting out. Her in her backyard is a beautiful sanctuary. And the two individuals that drove me, I ended up telling the story of the book, and they ended up signing it, but they were meant to. And then from there, we left and drove up to Sedona, and I had no idea how amazing Sedona was. It's just like you driving along and you're in the desert and it's green and brown and green and brown. Then you turn this corner and bang, there's these beautiful, huge red rocks all over, and you're in, oh my God, I didn't expect that. And the energy was beautiful. So we ended up having something to eat at her restaurant in Sedona. And what came for me, and what was a particular note that I don't want to forget, is that something happened to me. I started to realize that I was integrating at a very rapid pace information that God was giving me. And as I'm sitting there eating my lunch, my friend and her friend that also owned the restaurant, beautiful woman, went inside and left me alone outside. And it was a beautiful backyard with green grass and big beautiful sycamore trees that I'd never seen before. And I'm in this sanctuary, this beautiful fairy garden, and I start hearing from God, and he starts talking to me and giving me information. And it's like the more I sat and slowly ate, it was like the more I started to receive information. And it was me sitting there going, and I take a bite, and then I go, oh, okay, and then I hear a little more and hear a little more. So it was me integrating all the information, and I was getting more and more of it at a very high level. Incredible. So we ended up going for Chinese food with the rest of the group that was teaching and held the seminar. They all made their way up to Sedona, and we ended up having dinner that night, which was wonderful. But I wanted so much to tell them all the story of the book, but it wasn't meant to be because it didn't happen. The energy there was really weird at the table, and I was being stifled, and I could feel it. When I tried to speak and share with them that I had once been in a group where It was called the Great I Am, based on Scott Peck's work, which is when you're in a circle, circle of people, you sit there and you can't speak until you're moved by God to speak, and to be able to experience that and know what it's like. And I shared that, but it just seemed like when I spoke, there was I could feel I wasn't being heard. And then I thought, I have to let it go. And I ended up sitting there and saying, oh, let it go, Sand. It's not meant to be tonight. And that was a big learning for me, a big awareness, because learning when to speak and not to speak, and learning that you might really want something or want to be able to do something like a keener. I got to go. God's got me on this mission. I got to get the signatures. I got to tell the story. And that night, it was, don't say anything. You're not meant to say anything. And I could really feel it. So I just went, it's been a busy day. Sit down, have a beer, and relax. And I let go. And then my friend just said, let's go. Time to go. So I gave everyone a hug goodbye, and off we went. And then we had booked a room in a hotel that accommodated dogs, because my friend brought her dogs. And it was very wonderful and very relaxing. And that night I didn't sleep a wink, because God talked to me the whole night, and God revealed to me in the 4 or 5 hours that I was lying there, 6 hours. It was like I was encapsulated in this the loving arms of God, where he revealed to me my totality as a being, and shared with me that being the Holy Grail, that I had been his representative for the great men that he had sent had sent to mankind to help them with any great movement forward. And that not only had I been wife to Elijah and Jacob, who happened to be our speaker, but I knew I was the Eve to Dave's Adam. I know that my present husband is King David and King Henry VIII, and I was his wife in both lifetimes. I knew I was Isis to Osiris, Ra. I knew that the Cleopatra to the Mark Antony, the Grail to the Galahad, and eventually to the Lancelot, and the Mary to the Jesus, and the light to Beethoven, and the light to Don Quixote, and the great men that God has sent as his knights, as his warriors, King Arthur, George Washington, John Adams, those are the lifetimes God sent me to be his love, to be the loving God reflection to the men who carry out the action. I am the silent love, and in my eyes they see God loving them back. And that is my totality as the Holy Grail. And that night I was able to know in depth more of who I am. That was huge for me. It was an absolutely huge revelation, and one that I now know. But the totality is placed in my knowing. That was lovely. Then the next morning we got up and off we went. We had breakfast again with the speakers and some of the group. And I was able to share with the main speaker my relationship to him and who he was in eternity. Because I was there with him as his mirror, his God mirror. And that the signatures I received before I came were very important, because it was the coming together of the 12 tribes of Israel represented in these 2 signatures in that book that were laying the foundation for the return of the Christ. And this is how it looks. And it's great, because one of the speeches that he gave during the seminar was, when the return of the Christ actually happens, the people that will struggle the most are the scientists and the theologians, because those fundamental people that believe in the fundamental rules. In other words, they're in their head. They're in their mind. They're not in their heart. And when this story breaks out and when this is made known, that yes, I have that knowing. Other people have that knowing. Oh, and now I'm hearing, well, anyway, after breakfast, after I shared this, they left, and then I went off to another place where I had met the owner of this amazing crystal shop, who ended up signing the book. And then I met another woman there who I just absolutely fell in love with. We were soul sisters. I believe she too was a disciple, one of the women disciples at the time of Christ. We bought me this beautiful necklace that has the face of God in it. Unbeknownst to me, when I bought it, when I got it home, I went, oh my gosh, there's the face of God in it. So I became instant friends with this beautiful soul who I will maintain contact with. Again, I'm saying I'm making this video for myself. The one thing I left out was when the women that opened the circle all congregated with the speaker on the Easter Sunday, and we all gathered in a circle and received a blessing, and we confided in one another that we knew that Christ was coming. And so this validation, this awareness came numerous times for me over the course of my stay. What was amazing too is that after the speakers had left that morning and I had gone to this crystal shop and met these beautiful people and got them to sign, come back to the restaurant, and I'm there and I see this family, and instantly could feel the light of the two children in this family. And the mother I'd met while waiting for the washroom came back, and I invited them to come out the back and sign the book when they were finished their lunch. And when they did, they came around the back and walked up to me, and I said, this is the book where I honor people by having them sign who carry the special light. And I pull the book out, and this woman looks at me and she goes, I have that exact same book at home. And I went, really? And she said, yeah, the exact same book. It's a little lighter brown. Same book, same image on the front, same book. My mother got it for me. And I go, really? And she said, actually, I've had it. She gave it to me 2 years ago. And she said, I've been hanging on to it. And I don't know what it's for. I don't know what to do with it. And I looked at her and said, has anybody written in it? And she said, no. And I said, you're meant to send me that book, because I was told 2 years ago, 2 men came to me within 2 days of each other and told me I'd be getting a sacred book to collect more signatures of those present at the time of Christ. And I said, you're to send me that book. And she was blown away. And so was I, that God would bring me the exact same book, only it's empty, so I can collect more signatures. That probably had to be the highlight of the whole trip for me, because it blew me away. So I said goodbye to them, and off they went. Had a great time being the tourist for a while, took some pictures, got a t-shirt, and started driving back to Scottsdale, Phoenix. Stayed overnight at my friend's. We were exhausted. And then the next morning I realized I had a bit of a problem with my charge on my card from the hotel, and I'd left my shawl there. So my friend said, oh, you left your shawl, you can't leave that, you got to go back. So I said, why don't we go back to the hotel, we'll have breakfast, and then you can drive me to the airport. And sure enough, that's what ended up happening. She drove me back. I got my shawl, straightened out the room, the credit card issue, and ended up getting treated for breakfast. So we sat outside where this beautiful fireplace would be lit at night, and you could all gather around in a circle at this beautiful fireplace that they had at the hotel. But here it was at 9:30 in the morning, and my friend and I are sitting there, and the fire's on. And I'm looking at this fire and thinking, wow, it's really warm. It's like 80 degrees, and they got the fire on. And she goes, yeah, they should probably be turning that off. Maybe we should say something. And then I said, yeah, maybe. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God. I looked, and there were all the Native Indians that follow me and their ancestors sitting around this sacred fire. And then I realized they were closing the circle. That those women at the beginning of the seminar that sat with me opened the circle. And yet God had to bring me back to be present when that circle was closed. And the moment I got it, the fire went out, and I said, aho, and the circle was closed, and it was time for me to go home. I got goosebumps telling you that. So there, that was my amazing trip. I signed, as I usually do, the flight staff on WestJet to the book, and one of the ladies working at the airport. I got total 48 signatures on my trip to Sedona and to Phoenix. 48 light beings came forward and signed. What a miracle trip. What an amazing miracle trip, from the dreams to the people to the serendipitous, synchronistic happenings that occurred throughout my time there. And I wanted to make this video and not mention names, but of course I want to mention names and just say how wonderful it was to meet all you people, you beautiful, beautiful angels. And thank you for being part of my journey. And you're all so important, because this is happening, and the miracle of the return is now. And I will continue to keep you posted and updated. And yes, I'll probably post this video. That's what I'm hearing. I'll post this video. Thank you. More to come. Bye for now.